Hello and welcome back to the Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Today we have the return of a video from previous weeks. About last month time we did upload a video on the return of fans to Scottish football stadiums with representatives from Clyde and Stenhousemuir. It was greatly received. I think it provided insight for those who watched the video on sort of how Scottish clubs are dealing with the pandemic with no fans. So we've brought it back for a second part as we look to probably do these once a month as new government updates come out, the season takes more turns and there's more information available to clubs as to how they're going to deal with this situation. So this is episode 2, part 2, whatever you want to call it. We'll try and bring it back from December and bring more guests onto it. So if there's any improvements, anything you'd like to see change to the format we're doing this, please do let us know and we can change that up for December time or any more of these we do decide to do. This time we've got Stirling Albion Chairman Stuart Brown and Dumbarton Vice Chairman Colin Hosie, and we thank both of them for their participation and their honesty in this for what is a challenging time for their clubs. Plenty is discussed in this, Stirling Albion and Dumbarton's own situations discussed in detail. Live streaming takes a focus in this one. It was one topic we perhaps skirted over a wee bit in the last one, but that takes a full effect look at this time around because obviously the lower league clubs have been able to utilise their streaming services early on now in the Betfred Cup and the league fixtures that have been played so far with varying success. So we discuss them in detail, finances again as the season goes on, and a wee bit more of everything else in between, new government tier restrictions as well, and what impact that has on clubs. So we hope you do enjoy. Please do let us know what you think of it in the comments, and let us know again if you want to see any changes made to the format. We've got plenty coming on the channel after this video. Last night we uploaded our Premiership review of an exciting weekend of Premiership action, so do check that out once you've finished watching this one. Also, it's an action-packed weekend and week here, I should say, on Not the Old Firm. League Cup fixtures, Scotland fixtures, it's all happening. We'll have previews of the Scotland match against Serbia and the UEFA Nations League match. Of course, the Serbia match taking the most importance as Scotland look to qualify for their first major tournament since 1998. So do check that out once they're up on the channel. We'll have a preview of that and an instant reaction on the whistle at full time. Will either be elated or in tears. It'll be one of the two. And as well, we'll have our previews and reviews of the League Cup fixtures. Only 2 rounds this time. One over the Tuesday and Wednesday, and then over Saturday and the one game on the Sunday. So we'll review all that and look ahead to it as well, on top of another exclusive interview, which will be out later this week. So plenty happening on the channel and plenty of content for you to look at as well. And I mean, we had another exclusive interview last week with Tom James, currently on loan at Wigan from him. So you've got plenty of content to watch here on Not the Old Firm, as well as all the written content on our website and any other clips and different wee bits on our Twitter. So I think that's all the boring PR stuff out the way. We hope you do enjoy this chat. We hope you find it informative. Again, please do let us know what you think of it in the comments. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take it easy. So just to start with then, how's the sort of the start of the season been? It's obviously been a wee while since your respective teams, obviously. First of all, before I actually get into it, we should probably introduce for those who are watching this, who we actually have with us. Stuart, can you introduce yourself first?
Yes, Stuart Brown, Chairman at Stirling Albion Football Club.
And Colin?
Colin Hosie, Vice Chairman of the Dumbarton Football Club.
Brilliant. As I was saying, thanks again for joining me tonight. But how's the start to the season been? It's been a wee while since your team's kicked a ball.
I'll defer to Colin. He's had 2 wins in a row.
Well, in the league we've started well. In the Betfred we've not done so well. We've played 2 in that and lost, and we play on Tuesday night again. We're at Methil on Saturday for our 4th league game. We had one game postponed, which we played on Tuesday night against Clyde. So in the league we're okay. We're happy. We've started the way I think Jim would want the team to have started, but getting a couple of results. And results that always give confidence to the players, especially when they're a new team, as we've got again this season. So a long way to go. And with so much uncertainty with the, COVID-19, it's, we just keep going as we do at this moment. So from a Dumbarton point of view, as a Dumbarton supporter, I'm quite happy the way we started. Over to you, Stuart.
Yeah, I think if anything, we're slightly disappointed with our league start. Clearly, we started against the overwhelming favourites in Queen's Park, and on balance, probably we could have nicked that one, but followed up with a last-minute equaliser against Stennismuir. Having dominated the first half, the second half completely turned round, and they were the far better team. So to come away with the draw was probably quite a result. At the end, it was pretty much the last kick of the game. And then on Saturday past, in awful conditions, we had very much the better game against Annan and deservedly came through although it was only 1-0. It felt like a lot more. Their keeper had a couple of great saves. So you're only as good as your last result. And we head to Brecon on Saturday, who've clearly they've beaten a hoodoo because they've finally got a result. So that won't be easy. But you know, we've tonight actually the boys are training, and this is the first time this season we've had a full squad at training. I think this has been quite a pattern at a lot of clubs. We've had a lot of early season injuries, and for the first time tonight, every one of those is behind us, and there's a full squad training. So our targets are to win the league and prove the professional full-time team club wrong.
I suppose that is the one that I suppose it's in all four tiers: Celtic in the Premiership, Hearts in the Championship, and then when you get to sort of League One, League Two, it'll be Falkirk and Partick Thistle for you, Colin, who will be expected to win your league, and it'll be Queen's Park in League Two. But I think the start of the season showing it's Partick Thistle, especially if you look at that, they've not started particularly great. Queen's Park have found it difficult as well. I think COVID, perhaps, the way things have played out early on, because everybody is on such an even playing field, things are a bit more level than perhaps they will be January time.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling COVID's going to play its part somewhere along the line. Let's hope it's not a devastating role it has to play, but I just don't see. I'm sure Colin would agree. For part-time clubs, it's extremely difficult to protect people in a bubble. We've had one player in isolation. He's due back at training tonight. So whether that's lucky or unlucky that we've had one, but I think we'd all agree there's probably more to come.
Yeah, I think you have. When you go, Colin, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I totally agree with Stuart. When you're a part-time club, whenever the players have done their training stints, I'm sure Stuart's the same at Stirling. We've got a procedure which everybody knows, the players know, everybody who comes to the club's got it. But once they leave, we can't. Some of these guys have got jobs as well. So once they go to a different bubble, effectively, there's very little we can do. But we try to make sure that they follow the guidelines to the best. And that's, again, I would agree with, I'm sure Stuart would agree, that we gave a procedure to the players just in following on with the SPFL had guided us and the government, and we felt handed that out, But we're a slightly part-time. It's a big difference to be able to put something in place and say you can't do this and you can't do that. We've got to rely on the guy's own mentality. And to be fair, they have done that. There's very little if they go into a situation where they don't know somebody's got it, then that becomes out with it. Anybody's control, and that's where the difficulty is. You were just talking there, Ben, about teams in our league. You've got Falkirk, Partick Thistle, and obviously Cove Rangers, who are the unseen team or the unknown team to a lot of us from there. And people talk about the Premiership and the Championship being two good leagues. I haven't been the Championship for a while and been in the second division for a while. The leagues are much more competitive now, I think, than they've been for a long time, because there's teams below the four divisions desperate to get into the league, and the clubs who have changed their situation are desperate to stay in the league and show that they've had a blip. And on football, we've seen that with clubs, and I think both the first and second are not getting the recognition I think that they should get for the competitiveness in games. As Stuart said, he's seen games where they've had the possession 90%, or the majority of the possession can come out either with a draw or a defeat. So that's what fans want to see. Okay, it's not very good for us as club officials, but the competitiveness in the leagues, I think, is not recognised by other people.
I mean, you probably know more about sort of the Lowland League and Highland League stuff that Colin was just touching on there, Brora Rangers, Kelty Hearts, and I mean, it's only a matter of time before these clubs make strides in the league, so more so than ever, you probably need to be away from those bottom spots in League Two, especially this season.
Yeah, I dreaded position 42. I think there was a lot said when the leagues were closed down. A lot of it was very unfair and unjustified, particularly towards the Brecon City chairman, who behaved himself impeccably throughout the whole process. But there's going to be a position 42 this season. I'm assuming the Highland League are about to start up. I think they've decided to play a 16 game league. So yeah, nobody wants to be anywhere near position 42. I think the one concern that clubs in our league have is that there's a danger of potentially spending money that you don't have to try and get away from that situation. It's certainly not something that we've gone down the route of, but the temptation must be there. If you're sitting in the bottom position around the turn of the year, then you've got to look to get out of there. I think you're absolutely right, Ben. The teams that are sitting outside in the Lowland and the Highland and even in the west of Scotland, there's some frightening prospects in amongst there in terms of the backing that they've got financially. I don't think there's too many people who haven't seen the flashing lights in the Darvel changing room, So if they can measure up to that on the pitch as dazzlingly, then there's a lot of teams coming through. But I totally agree with Colin. I think there's a lot said about the standard of football in the lower leagues. I think between League One, League Two, we've certainly gave Arbroath a hell of a good game in the Betfred Cup, and we'll be going to play Montrose Tuesday night. We'd expect to measure up to them. We could probably live without the trip to Ross County on the Saturday. I've got 25 guys getting COVID tested next Tuesday night. Could do without that expense, but we'll certainly honour the fixture, providing we get enough players coming through the test. It'll be very interesting. I'm sure Colin would agree with this as well. It'll be very interesting to see how many positive tests come through these examples, because I suspect there are people that have gone through COVID and not even known they've had it. So the testing next Tuesday night will be an experience. I believe it's not a very pleasant one. I don't know if either of you have had a test, but I dread the bit up the nose, that's for sure. I could probably cope with the one in the throat, but I'm not so sure I want something stuck up my nose. So
we've got next Tuesday night, because we're at Kilmarnock on the Saturday, so we've got the same process to go through for the team. So again, it's that question, sure, will everybody, ideally we'll have everybody through it positively, but it may not be like that, and that's a concern, because obviously we're squads, aren't they? Large, we've got 19 players, that's that. One, you've got 2 goalkeepers, and from there, so you've not got a big squad to be able to add on to other ones. But like Stuart says, we will compete the fixture.
I know like the likes of Peterhead had their testing paid for by Dundee United in the last round of Kilmarnock and Ross County. An option for you guys this coming week as this goes out?
We've funded our own testing, £75 a test plus VAT. for 25 people. To be fair, and I don't think any of us would underestimate the kindness of James Anderson, which has been a huge assistance. But I've just finished doing our November return, and that money's getting spent very quickly. There's not too much of it left. I'm hoping very much to have some of it left to be able to pass over to our foundation. We've been waiting now since June to have our foundation approved by the charities registrar. They're running about 3 months behind, so we're in a bit of limbo at the moment. But we certainly would plan to put the money to good use in the community once we can get the foundation up and running.
With that, how I know that that's obviously a great thing you're doing, but that must be taking a bit of a hit on the actual club's expenses as well, given like every penny's a prisoner now, but Stirling Albion seemingly trying to put theirs to good uses in the community.
Yeah, every time the subject of finance comes up, I need to be very careful in how I couch what I say, because from a cash flow position, we do not have a problem. We're in a healthy place, cash flow wise. I think the fear of us, and I'm sure for many clubs, is where we'll be at the end of this. You know, we'll get to the end of the season, we will survive, we'll be still in the black. But then how do we then prepare for the following season with what's left in the bank? You know, where do you create a playing budget from if we go through the season without fans, without revenue streams? Because again, we keep saying this, I'm sure Colin will agree, the famous, I'm sure Colin will agree, you know, it's not what comes through the turnstiles that makes it for football clubs at our level. It's good and fans are what it's all about, but it's the spin-offs into hospitality, etc., that really make the difference for a club at our level. So with no fans coming through the turnstiles, there's no one to come into hospitality, and that's where we're taking a huge hit in our budget. We pretty much remodel the budget every week, and it has got slightly better. Live streaming has helped, not hugely because there's quite a lot of cost in live streaming. I think we may have identified, even at this early stage, there's a wee bit of a novelty to live streaming and the numbers tail off a bit. I think winning games probably helps the number of people that will pay for your live stream. But, you know, I think it's a lot easier to decide, I'll not bother with the game this afternoon because I've got other things to do. If there's not a stadium to go to, there's not a turnstile to click, and enjoy the experience of being with your mates, having a couple of beers beforehand. I think, you know, just tuning into a live stream at £10, which is what we're charging for league games, it's just not the same experience. And then, of course, if you have the disaster we had last Saturday when our live stream totally failed, then, you know, that causes, you know, panic amongst the ranks and people saying, I'll maybe not bother next week. I can assure every Stirling Albion fan that we did a live test this evening and we're 100% good to go for next Tuesday night against Montrose. So there's my plug for live streaming next Tuesday night.
Brilliant. Colin, is Dumbarton much the same, just in terms of finances and stuff, hospitality probably a bit?
Yeah, as Stuart says, for part-time, for any club, you know, we're looking after Dumbarton and Stirling Albion. We certainly have been fortunate. We've launched a lottery. We've got the live streaming. We've been supported with our fans who've been put their hands in their pockets to help us when things have been tighter. But the match day experience, Stuart will have been is going to games the same as myself. Normally in a game, you're sitting talking to the person next to you about what's happening, an incident. You lose that when you're socially distanced from it. And while we're in a fortunate position to be able to go to a game to see it, you miss the interaction, as Stuart already said, of meeting your friends, your people who you've went to the games over the years, you got to know, and you lose that. Hospitality to us, we have 2 good function suites where we can utilise that. We've lost all that income which is a big drain on our resources. Well, we've been well taken up with our fans, with taking their season tickets and using that to help the club, which has been a great asset to us. You can only, that is limited because they're missing the interaction that come into the game, as Stuart said. While you watch it on, okay, when it was torrential rain on Saturday and our game had swapped from Dumbarton to Airdrie, who were, because of the weather conditions. Maybe I could have thought of sitting in the house watching it live in the streaming when the rain and the wind's blowing into you. But all joking aside, it's not the same, I don't think, watching a game live on television. I think it's a one-off. People don't mind doing it for that. But to go a whole season, we need to find a way of getting fans back into football in some respect. And with how that's going to be done, I know Ross County have got this experiment with bringing 300 fans in. Now, that would make a big difference to us, or some form of hospitality to get it. But Stuart hits the nail right in the head. You're looking at your figures every week, every month to see what you can do, and you can only go to the same people so many times. So it's trying to find something that's new. As I say, that's why we launched our new lotto, to try and fans or people who are not coming to games could do something. The Dumbarton fans who are out with the district getting involved with the club. And it's things like that, doing we've got an online programme. Fans can order the programme online and get it in time for the game, things like that. So we're trying to do anything to keep our income stream forward. But as Stuart rightly said, you come to the end of the next season, what are we going to do? If we go the whole season without any fans, jeevers creepers, it's a big, I think it's a big concern for football in general, not just Dumbarton, Stirling Albion and any other clubs. I think it's a big concern if fans aren't allowed back, or somebody will need to help us.
I think that's the thing.
I don't.
When you go, Stuart?
I was just going to say, I don't think Colin or I want to get involved in a political argument, but it does seem a bit incongruous that fans can't come into football stadiums that are open plan in limited numbers when if you've ever tried having a rammy in a shopping centre or a supermarket, where it is impossible to properly social distance despite your best efforts. It does seem a bit incongruous that we cannot have a limited number of fans socially distanced. We both have modern stadiums. We're very much advantaged, and we've got 2 terracings and 2 stands. I think there then becomes a balance in terms of the cost of putting a game on in a socially distanced stadium against what you're going to make out of getting fans in, depending what the numbers are. But if we're still able to live stream, which I understand we would be able to do with limited numbers, then perhaps we can have the best of both worlds. I can't see fans coming into Central Belt clubs this side of New Year, though. I just don't think that Nicola's going to allow us to do that. Sorry, Ben, on you go.
No, I think the thing for me, I know you said about shopping centres and stuff. As we record this, the last game I was at was Livingston v St Johnstone. I passed through there to go to Starbucks to get a coffee to take to the football. I mean, that's the times we're living in. I can take a Starbucks into the Tony Macaroni now. But I passed through there. An hour later, as I'd been in that shopping centre, the shopping centre literally got shut to the public because there was too many people indoors. There was that many, must have been a couple of thousand, right? Shut the doors basically. Went over to the Tony Macaroni. It's probably about a 10,000 seater wide, all open planned. You can't have 300 of those same people in the shopping centre across the road in the stadium. And I think while people are respectful of the virus rising in this country, and I think if obviously like shopping centres and stuff, they need to stay open as well because their industry is just in as much financial as football and the theatre industry and things like that. But it doesn't help, say, a Livingston fan walking through Livingston Shopping Centre. They can walk about in there with 3,000 people indoors, but not watch their football team outdoors with 10% less people that's where I think the frustration comes from.
Yeah, and here we are in danger of getting into a political argument.
Yeah, I know. I realised that. I realised halfway through it. I realised halfway through it. I could see myself going off. But I think, I mean, they were talking about it in the last one. It's the wee discrepancies that they were talking about. But back to the football. Keep the politics for the politicians.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is out, Joe Biden or Donald Trump will be US president. Who knows? But
well, yeah, I cannot. I mean, I have got a very limited interest in politics, but I have to say I'm finding the US election somewhat gripping.
I
think we're all praying for the same.
Yeah,
I think we're all praying for the same outcome.
By the time this is out, we'll know. But I stayed up to 4 a.m. on election night waiting for the result. 2 days later, still been what? Anyway, that's beside the point. From Donald Dumbarton and Stirling Albion's live streaming, one thing I've seen with the Premiership clubs is that the Premiership clubs are all using one centralised system. That seems to crash just about every other weekend through no fault of the clubs. And everybody for Championship is pretty much left to their own devices. To me, that completely boggles my mind that the likes of yourselves are basically having to do up your own services while the bigger clubs in the country get a big helping hand.
I think, to be fair, one thing my personal sort of feeling is that if the partner played Stirling Albion tomorrow, on Saturday, and somebody from Dumbarton wants to watch the game, they've got to log in to Stirling Albion's site to get it. The following week, Stuart is going to Livingston, for example, or a game in his division, against Brecon. He's then got to sign into Brecon's website. I would like to see if they could get to the situation once she's logged in, then you had access to be able to, you didn't have to log into each club's. There was one sort of central point to make it easier. And I think that maybe would be a way of maybe reducing it, because most people, it's like, you look at the time when people arrive at a football match, unless you're at hospitality, between 2:30, if you take the traditional 3 o'clock kickoff, from 2:30 on, it gets busier and busier until you get to the 10 to 3, 5 to 3 bit, when everybody's pushing to get on and to the game just at the last minute. And I think the same thing happens with the live streaming. People know they've got to do it, but wait to just at the last minute, and then everybody hits it. And I think that potentially could be maybe one of the problems. Whereas if they allowed you, when you logged into it, that's you get the access to it, whether you're going to watch Stirling Albion, Dumbarton, Steny, you've got it, and you've got your login done. And that, I think that may help the situation for us going forward.
I suspect the problem might be that around how collecting the fee and making sure it went to the right place. But yeah, I do agree the logging in has caused all sorts of grief for us. Not for us as a club as such, but for people trying to get in. And you're right, there's a bit of a crescendo about 2:45 to 3, and that's caused issues. As I say, we did a live test tonight and the pitch is working fine. So fingers crossed. I think the other thing it's almost become a topic of derision has been some of the attempts by the Pixelot camera to follow the football, as opposed to things like a polythene bag or anything else that happens to get its attention. We haven't gone down the Pixelot route. We're very fortunate that we're using live cameras. We've got 4 live cameras. We're helped by Stirling University students, which is fantastic. We've got a streaming company that's providing the magic box, as we call it, that gets us into systems. But there are considerable costs to running a live stream, which people think £10, that's an awful lot. But by the time we've paid our costs, which includes VAT coming off, which includes a fee to whoever you're running your funding through, there's not an awful lot left. We've got a company in Holland that I think they're called Clean, that they take £1.42 of every stream that we have. So it all mounts up. And I think we've calculated we need something around 150 subscribers just to break even.
And I think even when you were talking about the pixel lock cameras, I don't know if you've seen the thing about Inverness the other weekend. I think it was against Arbroath.
The baldy linesman.
I was about to say I didn't really want to go there with you, Stuart, but basically anytime the lines,
I'll support you in your
ball,
complaint, Stuart. anytime
the ball basically went over to the other side of the park, it took in the bald linesman's head as the football rather than the actual ball. So I think it has been. I'm not saying that happens to every single linesman and every single pixel lock camera up and down the SPFL, but it is those wee tiny issues that have sort of. It's not even really the club's fault, but it doesn't make fans any happier.
Well, if the linesman's got any sense, he'll sell advertising space and make some money out of it.
By the way, wouldn't it be the worst thing? I suppose we'll extra cash now, so maybe we can get somebody for the SFA on next time. We can float.
Yeah, I would say one thing. Referring back to the point Colin made about their game being switched at the weekend, I think that is something that has to be applauded by the SPFL. A move that would never have happened under the past under normal times. I've long since argued that there should be much more flexibility about things like this. And here we are in the COVID situation. And as soon as a problem like that has arisen, I'm assuming, Colin, that it was all systems go.
Yeah. To be fair, when the weather was so bad during the week, and the groundsman was expressed his concern that that we've got a weak point, and he says, look, I'm worried about this. We spoke obviously with Airdrie FC, and they were quite happy for us to go to the SPFL and ask them, and they were supportive of it, to be fair. And then obviously with going to the weather people to find out what the forecast was. And the worst bit about it was the Saturday was a bit dry, and then it suddenly just opened up and it just torrential. And because where we are situated, if the water doesn't drain, if the tide's coming against it, sort of things, which made it worse. So we've also done, our groundsmen done a power of work over it since then, and identify some areas, and we did some deep piercing in it to assist it from going forward. So it was really good that Airdrie, allowed, as Stuart said, the SPFL reacted from our point of view in the right way by saying, look, we can swap the games over to keep the fixtures going, because if you get into this situation where we've got games outstanding and then the league implodes because of COVID, what are they going to do? And so that was a positive. But what Stuart says is right. It's taken something like COVID to allow these changes to take place when they could have been done before, when we had torrential, the winter when it was really bad snows and things like that. They could have allowed maybe games to have swapped. So there is a change, I think, in attitude, which is to be welcomed. From there. I think the other thing is there's more clubs now with, artificial surfaces than I think maybe than grass at our level. I think you look at our division, I think there's 3-4 clubs with grass and the rest are all artificial. So we're one of in that situation. So there is possible leeway for this to happen. And again, if it happens from there. But from our point of view, it was very good that all parties were in agreement with it, which was a positive.
I suppose that is one of the things that I'm worrying about that in the top flight is this fixture traffic jam, because you've got much less time to fulfil these games. You're not even talking about COVID postponements. You're going to hit water. You're going to hit more so waterlogged pitch season in a few months. If you have a backlog of say 4 or 5 games, the calendar's not exactly got much room to fit them in this year.
Hopefully.
I think that's the thing. I think that's been the answer from everybody. When you bring that up, even at Premiership clubs with the SFA people, it's like, how do we fit games in? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hope the dates appear.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is scope, but what it does, it puts pressure on players, probably increased injuries. I mean, I think the Lowland League have taken on a real challenge in trying to play a full programme of fixtures. And I know that we share the ground with Stirling University, and I think they've at the moment got at least 4 or 5 midweek fixtures just to complete the league programme. I think that was a real challenge to take on, because if there's any weather disruption, let alone COVID disruption, that's simply not going to happen, because there won't be the scope to fit the fixtures in. I think we're really looking forward to what is for us the first round of the Scottish Cup, which is on Boxing Day, which sounds, like back to the old days when, in fact, I can remember playing on Christmas Day in times gone past. I'm that old. But, the thought of us drawing Wick Academy away in the first round of the Scottish Cup on Boxing Day is kind of, and fair enough if Wick Academy drew Stirling Albion away on Boxing Day. God knows how the transport arrangements are going to work out for that. So, at least fans probably won't need to worry about it.
That'll be the first game they can go to.
Yeah. Well, the chances are possibly Wick will be allowed supporters in, but our fans probably wouldn't be allowed to travel, given the tier that we're currently in. So,
because I know that is obviously, I think it's a great thing. In Inverness, Ross County, as we record this, are the ones that are allowed tiers in. Aberdeen, Cove, and teams in Aberdeenshire will probably be added to that list fairly shortly. But is it slightly frustrating for you guys that, for example, Elgin, the same league as you, can have 300 fans in, albeit their virus situation's a bit calm on that situation? You can't have 300 at Forth Bank.
Yeah. I think I understand the reasoning behind it, and I think it makes absolute sense. Aside from the fact, let's not get into the political argument, why can't we all have fans? But the way the country's is split up, then I think we just need to live with that. Is it an unfair advantage or disadvantage for the away team that they can't have some of their own fans there? That's maybe a discussion. No, I think, knowing the situation at Elgin Football Club, they very much rely on their social club, which has been shut for some time. So I'd welcome the opportunity for any club at our league to have the opportunity to get some revenue. And I think just from our players' point of view, if we're going to Elgin City to play a fixture and there's 300 fans in the ground, even if they're all baying for us to get beaten, I still think that will help the atmosphere and help the players' adrenaline, and probably will create a better spectacle.
Colin, I know you have been to a few games behind closed doors, but obviously your big season openers and would be busier than probably your usual gate would be, and you've just got that bit of excitement. Like those type of games and those big occasions this season, especially in the first part, are just quiet, eerie.
Yeah, obviously, our first game was against Dunfermline in the Betfred Cup. At home, you're really looking forward to that, and you're playing it without anybody. Now, it went, that would have been a game where you would have expected a good crowd, good atmosphere from there. So you do. It's just says you lose that. I'm sure our players would be quite happy to get through to Methil and have 600 or 700 East Fife fans being it, if there could be that, even 300. But I think if a club can get 300 fans, great. We're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, it's ridiculous, Dumbarton can't get 300," but they can. We're in it together, and if that happens, it could turn around the other way, and we were the ones that could get the 300 fans, and it could be Ross County that couldn't get them, or the Highland, the teams up north who would be affected by it. So, what will be, but it would be good to your analogy about the Livingston, centre, get 2,000 or 3,000 people in it all at one time with mass and bumping against each other, and yet in football with open spaces we can't get anybody in. That it's where it gets a bit galling. But hey, going forward, we're in the situation we're in, and we've just got to look at positive going forward.
A lot as well about sort of teams coming together. Quite a lot of managers I've spoken to have just said the need for unity at this point and sort of passing on information. I'm assuming that's probably even more prevalent when you get to boardroom level.
Sorry, Ben, I missed a bit of that.
Aye, I could hear myself starting to sound like a robot at the start of that. Just in terms of, I've spoke to a few managers and stuff, and what they've said is that obviously it's a time to stick together, but it's probably more prevalent than ever at boardroom level, especially.
At our club, we are a very small, discreet, hard-working bunch of volunteers. So we've always been tight-knit. You know, we don't have the resource around about us, the paid resource that our colleagues in Championship and above can probably afford to have. Oh, I suspect that's a bit of a challenge for some of them. So we very much we're a working board. You know, there's no blazers and there's no sipping of whiskey. It's all about work, work, work. So in some ways, very little's changed. The only thing that's changed dramatically is the way we go about holding our meetings. And I'm not sure we'll ever go back to using the boardroom because Zoom provides the opportunity to do pretty much your entire meeting in the comfort of your own house with a PC screen in front of you, a laptop to one side, or in Colin's case, 2 laptops. So, you know, I think perversely, there's been some positives have come out of this. Where the challenges come are in terms of match day, but in terms of running the club, you know, I think there's been, as I say, perversely some positives that we've been able to pick up a phone and say, should we sort a Zoom? 20 minutes later, you're on a Zoom call. So whereas before, I don't think we'd even have dreamt of doing that. We'd have thought, oh, well, we better put that the agenda for the next meeting, you know, and we all traipse into the boardroom and smile at each other and have a chocolate biscuit, a coffee, and moan about everything that's around about us, and then go home. I actually think we deliver our business better now because of the circumstance rather than despite of.
We have sort of been forced into the 21st century a wee bit because press conferences now, a lot of them, even when you're at the stadiums, like some press conferences are done over Zoom, a lot of them just before games are done over Zoom. And I don't think, even though the pandemic will eventually subside and I don't know, maybe next year it will be semi back to normal, we hope. But I don't think a lot of the things we're doing now will change, especially at things like this. Like, we probably wouldn't be doing something like this if it wasn't for Zoom.
I would agree with Stuart. We've done the same thing. We now have Zoom meetings whenever, whereas before, as Stuart said, we'll send out an agenda. When will we meet? What time? Is everybody okay? Oh, I can't make Tuesday. Oh, can you make Wednesday? Now we have a Zoom call arranged weekly. We get the business done. We'll go over other areas that we need to do. The bit you do miss is the interaction in the boardroom where you're visiting opponents. You know, people you've known for a long time. To go to Stuart and say, how you getting on, Stuart? Shake hands. It's a bit unreal when you get into bump arm or something like that and say, well done, Stuart. You don't really get much more conversation than that because of your social distancing. There's that, and that's at all levels. That's the fans who have known each other, who supported Stirling and Dumbarton, but they know each other and they meet at that game and have a player. You've lost all that. So you've got it in the boardroom, you've got it at player level, slightly different. But even there, you see it when the players, one set of players, they both come out of the tunnel at the same time. Now they come out of different areas to come onto the park. You see the whole changes. But going forward, I think, as you said, Ben, the one thing that has changed and brought us a wee bit more into the 21st century is being able to use Zoom calls and other communication methods to get the business of the clubs done. We're like Stuart, we're all, part tight, as a labour of love being a Dumbarton supporter, as it is for Stuart being a Stirling Albion supporter. It's what you do because you enjoy it. You're a fan first and foremost. You could, every one of our board is Dumbarton supporters. And just to say, as Stuart said about his club, Stirling, they're all Stirling Albion supporters. First, they would be at the game if they were the directors or officials of the club, whatever way you want to look at it. And that, but the modern technology that we have now is making it easier to get the business done on a more regular basis. Whereas Stuart highlighted before, it was let's get an agenda, what we were putting on it. Now it can be, there's an SFL decision we need or an SPFL decision we need. We can have a quick Zoom call. We can all put our thumbs worth in and get us agree the answer and feed it back. And it does make a big difference. And I don't see Dumbarton changing back to having face-to-face board meetings. I think we'll stick to the Zoom or Teams method.
Whereas our fans would put it a bunch of Zoom.
I know that has been the pattern that's been thrown out a lot, to be fair. I'm nearly done my wee list of things I wanted to speak about. Just in closing, I know it's a big question, and you can't on this call could possibly answer it. When do you think we'll start to see some sort of semblance of normality in terms of fans coming in, hospitality settings opening? When are you guys? I mean, you can't really budget for it anymore. I know a lot of clubs budgeted for October, but I suppose now it's a bit of an unknown when you can actually budget for these things.
Yeah, I think I preferred the political argument, Ben.
As I said, there is absolutely no way on earth
you could talk. There you go.
Yeah.
As I said, there is absolutely no way any chairman or director or someone could answer that question now. I don't think anybody.
No. It's.
I think it would be unfair to make that.
Yeah, it's purely, but it is not. I suppose for fans, it is a wee bit concerning that clubs just aren't able to make that decision. And it's no fault of their own, but it's just it adds to the worry at an already worrying time in all aspects of life, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a big worry for every club, and that goes all the way up to the very top. You know, how many people will have found something else to do by the time we come out of this? You know, it is. You lose fans in a bad winter because they go 5 or 6 weeks without a game of football, and suddenly you find you've 20, 30 off your gate, which at our level is quite a substantial number. You know, if this goes on for the whole season with no fans coming in, you know, how do we then recapture the imagination? Or, you know, putting on the glass half full hat, perhaps people will be absolutely desperate to get back to football. I think that's another one that it's very hard to call because, you know, there is always pressure. Saturday afternoons when I was a kid, there was only one place to go, and that was a walk to Anfield Park, watch the Albion, come home, you know, and you didn't come home to, you know, another 10 games of football on the television. In fact, you were lucky if you had a television. So the competition is already fierce. Now we're adding in a new dimension is, well, do you know what? I've not really missed the football. And that's, I think, a huge concern. As I say, let's hope it works the other way that, you know, that I think we'll always have our core fan base, but it's trying to capture new people into the sport. And something like this is certainly not helping.
And like Stuart, I grew up going to Bulkhead, you know, that was it. And a Saturday, 3 o'clock, it was a home game 1 week, away the next week. Or maybe the reserve team might have been playing at Bulkhead on the Saturday as well. So you were always there as the Dumbarton supporter. I was forced, I grew up with my dad being involved with the club anyway. So at an early age, I was, you know, going to the Dumbarton games, home and away. So that's, I think, but like Stuart says, different generations now, they've got different, there was only, you waited, you might remember us, Stuart, you get the Evening Times or Evening Citizen to find out the results.
Yeah.
You know, you might not have heard the BBC Scotland News giving you the full-time results, so you were waiting to get a paper on a Saturday night to find out the result of how somebody, your opponents, you know, Stirling Albion and Dumbarton are challenging for the league. How did Stirling get on? They were getting beat 1-0 at half time.
Yeah.
Beauty. But you're still waiting. Maybe 8 o'clock at night you find out the final result. But you had that excitement. Now you can get it in your phone, you can get all the updates. And that is, as Stuart says, do people find something else to do? That's the worry. Then how we get them back into football. And
You've just
also when
you've just taken Ben back in time there that he'll not remember.
I know, he's trying to think, what's the times and
I've got one of these things, that's all I need. I've got one of these things. What's a paper? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it was the Pink News or the Evening Green Times, and you literally, in those days, you could walk from the ground to the nearest corner where the guy was selling the papers, and by the time you got there, he'd got some copies of newspapers that had a side column that had been filled in hot off the press, and the scores were there. Unfortunately, sometimes they weren't always the full-time scores, so you didn't find out till hours later that a game you thought you'd maybe won, that you'd actually lost or whatever. But no, a huge concern. I think people will find something else to do, and we need to find ways of rekindling that excitement. Hopefully, there'll be an initial burst of, thank God football's back. And then, of course, it's up to the players to convince the fans that what they've come back to see doesn't start with because we now have the dreaded thing of social media and pie and bovril, where, you never hear from them when things go well, but by God, do they let rip when things aren't going well. So, sometimes I look at pie and bovril, sometimes I don't, but you always know your enemy on pie and bovril.
I just stay after things. I'm a bit old-fashioned. Stay off the forum.
Oh, for goodness sake, he's old-fashioned, Stuart.
Yes, I am saying I'm old-fashioned. I'm sitting here. I've got my cup of tea ready. I've got Biscoff Lotus biscuits sitting here. So that's about as old-fashioned as I'm getting. But no, in terms of usual people my age, I suppose that is the thing, because obviously you will have diehard Stirling Albion, Dumbarton fans, but you probably are going to want to appeal to sort of my generation to sort of win their support so that in 30, 40 years' time, they're still going to the fourth bank.
With all due respect, Ben, we need to capture them before they're 19.
Yeah.
Because I think by the time they're 19, it's happened. Wherever they're heading in life, it's going to happen. If we haven't got them to a football ground before then, or encourage the kid to bring his dad, then that new audience isn't going to happen, and this hiatus, I don't think will particularly help us. Anyway, ask us a positive question now, Ben, before we finish up.
Well, I was about to finish up there. I don't want to finish on a really negative, somber note, so I'll just ask you if you get anything sort of positive outlook sort of for the next few months, if you've got any club stuff to promote as well. This will be out next week as we record this. Club stuff promoting. Now's the floor. I'll start with you.
Despite everything we've said, I still get a buzz on a Saturday when the football time comes around. It is depressing when you're in the stadium and literally, we used to be able to say we could count the fans. Well, actually, we can now, because there's very, very few there. We've got a handful of volunteer stewards making sure that all the temperature testing takes place for the officials, the visiting team. But aside from that, you could hear a pin drop in the stadium. But there's still that buzz. I haven't watched a live stream yet, so I don't know if you get a similar buzz or any kind of buzz. But certainly, when the whistle goes at 3 o'clock, or as we've traditionally said at Fourth Bank, 2 minutes past 3, because I don't think we've ever had a game starting time in the history of playing football, that buzz is still there. And I hope that is something that our fans can enjoy. Maybe not this side of New Year, but hopefully early in the new year when we start to get the R number way down and the government, avoiding a political argument, the government, start to see that perhaps we can behave ourselves in a socially distanced way and bring back the excitement of attending a football stadium.
Colin, you get anything to add?
I think Stuart summed it up for Martin, Stirling Albion, any of the clubs. Stuart says, you're kind of looking at it and say, well, I'm going to a game without any fans, but once you get there, and been fortunate enough to be allowed in to watch it, you do get the voice when the team's announced and you see it, the kick off, and then it starts again. And I hope that our fans are back in the ground sooner rather than later. But other people will determine that.